An Apache helicopter just fired 47 consecutive shots without missing once, hitting targets that China's S-400 system couldn't even track. US and Japanese forces conducted this test 3 weeks ago in the Philippine Sea, and Beijing's military strategists are now scrambling to understand what it means. Here's what changed everything about helicopter warfare in the Pacific. China spent 2 decades building the most advanced air defense network in the Indo-Pacific: the S-400 missile system, the HQ-9 radar network, ship-based interceptors on Type 055 destroyers, every system designed to detect, track, and destroy incoming threats from stealth fighters to cruise missiles. But there's one threat these billion-dollar systems struggle to counter: helicopters firing precision ammunition at ranges these defenses weren't built to handle. The AH-64 Apache entered service in 1986. It's older than most pilots flying it today. China assumed this aging platform posed minimal threat compared to F-35 seconds, B-21 bombers, and hypersonic missiles. They were wrong. The question that changes Pacific strategy: can the US and Japan turn a Cold War-era helicopter into a weapon system that defeats 21st century Chinese air defenses? The answer emerged during Exercise Orient Shield 24, a joint US-Japan military drill that tested a new ammunition type specifically designed to exploit a critical weakness in China's defensive perimeter. What happened during those tests forced Pentagon strategists to completely rethink helicopter warfare in contested airspace. The United States operates 1,400 AH-64 Apaches across multiple variants. Japan fields 62 AH-64 DJP Apaches, specifically configured for island defense in the East China Sea. Both countries face the same problem: how to keep these helicopters relevant when China deploys advanced radar and missile systems across the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea. China's answer was quantity and range. Deploy enough sensors and long-range missiles to create an impenetrable defensive bubble extending 250 miles from the mainland coast. Shoot down anything that enters this zone before it can fire a weapon. But here's where it gets interesting. The Apache's new weapon isn't a missile. It's a guided rocket that costs $25,000 per shot, roughly 1/400th the price of a single Chinese HQ-9 air defense missile. And it changes everything about the cost-exchange ratio in Pacific combat. The Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System 2, mercifully shortened to APKWS II, transforms unguided 70mm Hydra rockets into precision-guided munitions. A laser guidance kit screws onto the front of a standard rocket. The Apache's targeting system paints a target with a laser. The rocket follows that laser to impact within 3 feet of the aim point. Here's why this matters. A single Apache carries 76 of these rockets in 4 pods. That's 76 precision shots per helicopter. During the Philippine Sea test, US and Japanese Apaches fired 47 consecutive rounds at moving targets, simulating Chinese fast attack craft. Hit rate, 100%. Time from target acquisition to impact, 8.12 seconds. Cost per engagement, less than what China spends on a single interceptor missile. Traditional Apache Hellfire missiles cost $150,000 each and carry 8 per helicopter. APKWS II costs $25,000 and carries 76 per helicopter. It's a completely different tactical paradigm. Instead of 8 high-value shots, Apache crews now have 76 precision engagements. They can saturate Chinese defenses faster than those defenses can respond. But cost means nothing if you can't survive long enough to fire. That's where range comes in. China's S-400 system can engage targets out to 250 miles. Apache helicopters with Hellfire missiles operate at 5-mile range. The math is brutal. Chinese defenses kill the Apache long before it enters firing range. APKWS II extends Apache engagement range to 7.5 miles. That's only a 50% increase, still nowhere near Chinese missile range. So how does this change the tactical equation? The answer is terrain masking and sea skimming approach profiles. Apaches don't fly straight at targets like jets. They use islands, terrain features, and wave-top altitudes to stay below radar horizons until the last possible moment. At 7.5 miles, an Apache flying 50 feet above the ocean surface remains undetected by ship-based radar until it's already in firing position. Here's the combat scenario Pentagon planners are preparing for. Chinese Naval Task Force operating in the East China Sea, 150 miles from Japanese territory. Traditional F-35 strikes would trigger long-range missile engagement, forcing expensive suppression of enemy air defense operations before the strike even begins. Instead, 6 Apaches launch from Okinawa. They fly nap-of-the-earth profiles, using island chains for cover. They pop up 7.5 miles from the Chinese destroyer screen, low enough that ship radar only gets 15 to 20 seconds of tracking time before rockets impact. Each Apache fires 12 APKWS II rounds in rapid succession. That's 72 precision-guided rockets arriving on target within 8 seconds of each other. Chinese point defense systems, designed to intercept supersonic anti-ship missiles, struggle to track and engage. 72 subsonic rockets appearing simultaneously below the radar horizon. The rockets aren't fast enough to trigger automated defenses optimized for high-speed threats, but they're accurate enough to hit radar arrays, communication systems, and deck-mounted weapons. What they did next is even more surprising. October 2024, Philippine Sea, 200 miles east of Luzon. Exercise Orient Shield 24 enters its final phase. US and Japanese commanders designed a scenario specifically to test whether APKWS-equipped Apaches could penetrate simulated Chinese air defense networks. The Red Team, US Navy destroyers equipped with Aegis radar systems configured to replicate Chinese S-400 and HQ-9 detection parameters. Fast attack craft, simulating Chinese Type 022 missile boats. Electronic warfare systems mimicking Chinese jamming capabilities. The Blue Team, 6 AH-64E, Apache Guardians, 3 American, 3 Japanese, each loaded with 76 APKWS II rockets. The objective is to penetrate the defensive perimeter, strike 8 designated targets, and egress without being destroyed by simulated enemy fire. Pre-exercise projections gave the Apaches a 30% success rate. Most defense analysts expected Chinese simulated systems to detect and engage the helicopters before they reached firing positions. What actually happened kept Pentagon planners up at night for different reasons than they expected. All 6 Apaches successfully penetrated the defensive perimeter using coordinated terrain masking. They fired 47 APKWS II rockets at moving targets between 6 and 7.5 miles range. Hit rate, 100%. Time from first detection by simulated Chinese radar to rocket impact, 11.3 seconds average. Not a single Apache was killed by defensive systems during the engagement phase. But here's the kicker. The simulated Chinese defenses never achieved a firing solution. The Apaches appeared on radar, fired their entire payload, and disappeared below the radar horizon before defensive missiles could be launched. The system wasn't slow. It was optimized for the wrong threat profile. Chinese air defense doctrine assumes aerial threats arrive from altitude at high speed, cruise missiles at Mach 0.8, anti-ship missiles at Mach 2+, and fighter aircraft at 30,000 feet. The S-400 excels at engaging these targets. But a helicopter flying 50 feet above water, popping up for 15-second firing windows, then disappearing behind terrain? That's not in the playbook. This is where everything changed. 3 weeks after Orient Shield 24 concluded, Chinese military publications published unusual articles questioning the effectiveness of sea-based air defense against asymmetric rotorcraft threats. That's diplomatic language for, "we have a problem with helicopters." China's response reveals how seriously they're taking this capability gap. The PLA Navy accelerated deployment of Type 54B frigates with upgraded close-in weapon systems specifically designed for low-altitude threats. They're repositioning HQ-17 short-range air defense systems to forward island bases in the South China Sea. And they're conducting their own helicopter warfare exercises simulating low-altitude penetration tactics. But here's the problem China can't easily solve. Geography favors the defender in the East and South China Seas. Japan controls island chains that create natural helicopter approach corridors. The Philippines provides similar terrain masking opportunities. Taiwan's eastern coast offers mountain cover for Apache operations. China's defensive perimeter, stretched across thousands of miles of open water, can't cover every potential attack vector. The US and Japan aren't just upgrading Apaches, they're completely rethinking helicopter employment in high-end conflict. The concept is called distributed maritime operations. Instead of concentrating forces for large-scale strikes, scatter small Apache teams across multiple island bases. Each team operates independently, striking Chinese naval assets from unexpected angles, using terrain and surprise. One Apache team on Okinawa, another on Ishigaki Island, a third on Yonaguni, just 68 miles from Taiwan. Each team can reach Chinese naval operating areas in the East China Sea within 30 minutes. Each carries enough APKWS II ammunition to engage dozens of targets, and each costs a fraction of what China spends, maintaining air defense coverage across the entire region. The economics are brutal for China. They must maintain 24/7 air defense coverage across thousands of square miles, costing billions annually. Japan and the US only need to strike when and where they choose, using weapons that cost $25,000 per shot. It's the classic asymmetric warfare problem, except this time, the technologically superior power is on the wrong end of the cost equation. So, what does this mean for the future of Pacific military strategy? Can a 40-year-old attack helicopter with new ammunition outmatch China's modern air defense systems? The answer is yes, but only when employed in ways China's defenses weren't designed to counter. Here's what you need to remember. First, cost matters more than technology. APKWS II doesn't outperform Chinese missiles in speed, range, or payload. But at $25,000 per precision strike versus China's $10 million air defense interceptors, the US and Japan can afford to saturate defenses faster than China can afford to counter them. In a prolonged conflict, that economic advantage becomes decisive. Second, terrain is the ultimate stealth technology. The Apache isn't invisible to radar, it's just invisible long enough to matter. By using island terrain and sea-skimming profiles, these helicopters turn geography into a tactical advantage that billion-dollar Chinese radar systems can't overcome. China's sensors work perfectly. They're just looking in the wrong place at the wrong altitude. Third, asymmetric capabilities reset arms race dynamics. China spent decades building air defenses optimized for high-speed, high-altitude threats. The US and Japan responded by resurrecting a 40-year-old helicopter platform and giving it ammunition specifically designed to exploit the gaps in that defensive strategy. Sometimes, the most effective counter to advanced technology is simple tactics executed perfectly. The question now isn't whether APKWS-equipped Apaches can penetrate Chinese defenses. Orient Shield 24 proved they can. The question is how China responds to this capability gap. Do they spend billions repositioning air defense systems to cover low-altitude approaches? Do they develop new radar modes, optimized for helicopter detection? Do they build their own attack helicopter fleet with similar tactics? Whatever they choose, it will cost resources that can't be spent elsewhere. And that's the strategic goal: to force China to make expensive defensive choices, while the US and Japan maintain offensive flexibility with relatively cheap precision weapons. The Pacific arms race isn't always about who has the most advanced missile or stealth aircraft. Sometimes it's about who can turn old platforms into new problems that the other side can't easily solve. And right now, that 40-year-old Apache helicopter is creating exactly that kind of problem for China's billion-dollar air defense network. What happens next will determine whether helicopter warfare remains relevant in modern conflict or becomes the unexpected advantage that shifts the balance of power in the world's most contested waters.